Listen to me carefully. This is not an accident that you are hearing these words right now. This moment did not find you by chance, and this message did not reach you randomly. God has already stepped into your future, and what He saw there compelled Him to speak now, before your doubts could silence you, before fear could talk you out of obedience, before delay could steal your destiny. God released a word over your life. And that word is not small, it is not timid, and it is not symbolic. God said you will be a future billionaire. Not as a fantasy, not as a wish, but as an assignment. If that statement shakes you, it is because something powerful just collided with the limitations you have accepted for too long. Some of you are already arguing with this word in your mind. You are looking at your bank balance, your background, your education, your mistakes, your age, your location, and you are saying, this cannot be for me. But God never starts with where you are, He starts with where He is taking you. God does not consult your past to decide your future. He speaks from eternity into time, and when He speaks with authority. The same God who created abundance out of nothing is not intimidated by your lack. The same God who placed riches in the earth before humans existed is not worried about your current limitations. When God says you will be a future billionaire, He is not asking for your permission, He is announcing His intention. Understand this deeply. Wealth in God's hands is not about luxury, ego, or personal applause. Wealth is influence. Wealth is reach. Wealth is capacity. God does not raise people to high financial places so they can sit comfortably while the world struggles. God raises people so solutions can flow through them. God is looking for carriers, people He can trust with resources because their hearts are aligned with His purpose. And that is why this word is coming to you now. Before the wealth comes, God must shape the vessel. Before the billions move into your hands, God must remove small thinking from your spirit. Many people want the outcome of wealth, but resist the process that produces it. They want overflow without obedience, reward without discipline, increase without transformation. But God does not skip steps. When God declares something over your future, He immediately begins to work on your character, your mindset, and your habits. This is why some of you feel uncomfortable lately. Old ways of thinking no longer satisfy you. Small goals feel suffocating. Comfort feels like a trap. That restlessness is not confusion, it is preparation. God is expanding your capacity because what is coming cannot fit into the version of you that used to set. God is not calling you to chase money, He is calling you to chase alignment. Money follows obedience, provision follows purpose, increase follows stewardship. When God entrusts wealth, He looks for people who understand that everything they hold is temporary and accountable. He looks for people who can manage little without complaining and handle much without pride. That is why your current season matters. How you treat what you have now reveals whether you are ready for what is coming. If you are careless now, wealth will destroy you later. But if you are faithful now, wealth will multiply through you later. Some of you have been faithful in secret. You have done the right thing when no one noticed. You have remained honest when shortcuts were available. You have given, helped, supported, and endured without applause. And you wondered if God saw it. Hear this clearly. God never misses obedience. God never forgets sacrifice. God never overlooks faithfulness. When God says you will be a future billionaire, He is responding to seeds you planted long before you understood their value. What you call loss, God called investment. What you call delay, God called development. But let me speak with clarity and authority now. Wealth does not come to those who fear responsibility. If you are afraid of responsibility, you will sabotage increase. God's blessings expand responsibility, not remove it. When God increases you, more people depend on your decisions, your wisdom, and your integrity. That is why God is strengthening your inner life now. He is teaching you to think long-term, to act wisely, and to respond with patience. Emotional reactions cannot manage massive wealth. Impulsive decisions cannot sustain billion-level influence. God is training you to move with wisdom, not emotion. Many people pray for wealth but secretly fear visibility. But you cannot steward billions in hiding. Wealth brings exposure. Influence brings scrutiny. Authority brings opposition. God is preparing you to stand firm when misunderstood, criticized, or envied. Some of the pressure you are feeling now is not meant to break you. It is meant to reveal where you still seek approval from people instead of approval from God. When God elevates you, not everyone will celebrate. You must be anchored in God's voice, not human applause. Let me correct a dangerous belief right now. Humility is not thinking small. Humility is thinking accurately. It is not humility to reject what God has declared over you. It is not humility to say, I am not worthy, when God has already chosen you. True humility is agreeing with God even when His word stretches you. When God says you will be a future billionaire, humility says, then teach me how to carry it. Pride says, I deserve this. Fear says, this cannot be me. Faith says, I will become who this assignment requires. God often chooses people who have known lack because they understand the weight of provision. They know what it means to struggle, to wait, to stretch resources, to trust God when nothing makes sense. That history becomes wisdom. That pain becomes perspective. That experience becomes compassion. God does not raise people randomly. He raises them intentionally. Your story is not a disadvantage. It is your qualification. What you survived did not disqualify you. It trained you. You must understand that billion-level wealth is not built overnight. God works through process, strategy, patience, and consistency. He will open doors, but you must walk through them. He will give ideas, but you must execute them. He will send connections, but you must honor them. Divine favor does not replace discipline, it multiplies it. God's blessing does not excuse laziness, it empowers diligence. If you are waiting for a miracle that requires no effort, you misunderstand how God works. God partners with obedience. Right now, God is sharpening your discernment. He is teaching you to say no to distractions that look good but lead nowhere. Not every opportunity is your assignment. Not every open door is your door. Wealth is lost when people chase everything instead of focusing on what God assigned them. Focus is a form of obedience. When God speaks direction, He expects commitment. Half-hearted obedience delays full results. Some of you feel like your progress has been slow, but slow growth is still growth. God values depth over speed. Fast money without wisdom creates collapse. Slow, steady building creates longevity. God is more interested in sustaining your future than rushing your present. What He is building in you must last longer than you. When God increases you, the impact should outlive you. That is the level of thinking God is inviting you into now. Let me speak to your mindset, billionaires. Do not think in survival. They think in systems. God is teaching you to stop thinking paycheck to paycheck and start thinking legacy to legacy. Survival thinking asks, how do I get through this? Purpose thinking asks, what can I build that will serve many? God is expanding your vision because vision determines capacity. Small vision limits provision. Large vision attracts resources. When your vision aligns with God's heart, provision follows naturally. You must also understand that wealth tests character more than lack ever could. Lack reveals patience. Wealth reveals discipline. Lack teaches trust. Wealth tests stewardship. God will not give you something that destroys your soul. That is why He is teaching you now how to remain grounded, generous, and grateful. Gratitude protects wealth. Generosity sustains wealth. Obedience multiplies wealth. When God sees that resources will not replace Him in your heart, He releases more. There will be seasons where you feel isolated. That is not rejection, that is refinement. God often separates people before He elevates them. Noise disrupts clarity. Distractions weaken focus. God pulls you aside so He can speak clearly. The silence is not abandonment, it is instruction. Pay attention in quiet seasons. That is where strategies are formed, habits are refined, and vision is clarified. Let me be clear, not everyone around you can go where God is taking you. Some relationships cannot handle the weight of your calling. Some people prefer the version of you that did not threaten their comfort. Do not confuse loyalty with limitation. God sometimes removes people not because they are bad, but because they cannot grow with you. Release without bitterness. Move forward without guilt. God's plan is bigger than your need to be understood. As God increases you, He will test your obedience in small instructions. He may ask you to give when it does not make sense, to wait when you want to rush, to speak when you want to stay silent, or to move when you feel comfortable. Obedience is the language of trust. When God sees immediate obedience, He releases greater responsibility. Delayed obedience delays increase. Some of you have been receiving ideas that feel too big for your current resources. That is because God always gives vision before provision. If He gave you everything first, you would rely on resources instead of Him. Vision pulls you forward. Faith keeps you moving. Obedience builds momentum. The gap between where you are and where God is taking you is crossed by consistent action, not sudden leaps. Understand this, God's promises are not activated by emotion, but by alignment. Feeling inspired is not enough. Feeling motivated is not enough. You must build habits that match your calling. Future billionaires think differently, plan differently, speak differently, and act differently long before wealth appears. Your daily decisions are either preparing you or postponing you. God watches what you do when no one else is watching. Do not despise discipline. Discipline is not punishment, it is training. God disciplines those He prepares for influence. You cannot manage billions with chaos. Order attracts increase. Consistency attracts trust. Integrity attracts favor. Go. D is shaping you into someone others can rely on. Trust is the true currency of wealth. Without trust, money cannot stay. There will be moments when fear tries to return. Fear will remind you of your past, your failures, your limitations. When that happens, remind fear of God's authority. Fear is not a sign that you are off track. It is a sign that you are approaching something significant. Fear appears when old identities are threatened. Let fear know that you are no longer negotiating with limitation. God has already spoken. There is another dimension of this calling that must be spoken plainly, because many hear the promise but misunderstand the weight attached to it. When God declares wealth over a person's future, He is also declaring war on everything in them that cannot survive abundance. Poverty is not only a condition of finances, it is often a condition of thinking. God is not only interested in changing what is in your hands, He is determined to change what is in your mind. Because if your thinking remains small, wealth will either never arrive or will quickly leave. God is therefore confronting mindsets, breaking mental ceilings, and dismantling beliefs you absorbed from environments that never imagined more. Some of you were raised around limitation, And limitation taught you to play safe, to avoid risk, to fear failure. But the God who speaks to you now is not a God of fear. He's a God of intention and order. He designs outcomes before processes begin. He establishes ends before beginnings. That means your future was settled before your present ever challenged you. God already saw you handling more than you currently believe you can manage. And that is why He is stretching you beyond comfort. Comfort preserves the familiar. Calling demands transformation. God is also training you to understand timing. Wealth is not released when desire is loud. It is released when maturity is complete. Some doors stay closed not because God is withholding, but because entering too early would harm you. God is protecting you from premature exposure. He is teaching you patience not as delay, but as precision. When God moves, He moves at the exact moment when alignment, readiness, and opportunity converge. Nothing is wasted and nothing is late. You must also recognize that God often uses resistance as confirmation. When you begin to move toward what God has spoken, opposition increases, not to stop you, but to test your resolve. Resistance reveals seriousness. If you quit easily, you were never ready for the responsibility wealth demands. God is watching how you respond to pressure. Do you retreat or do you refine? Do you complain or do you adapt? Billion-level influence requires resilience that does not break under strain. Another truth you must embrace is that God's way of building wealth is often unconventional. He may lead you where logic feels thin, but obedience feels strong. He may guide you to build what others doubt, to invest where others hesitate, to persist when others walk away. God does not need popular approval to produce powerful results. He only needs your obedience. History is shaped by those who listen to God more than they listen to the crowd. God is also teaching you silence. Not everything He reveals to you must be shared immediately. Some visions are sacred and must be protected until they mature. Premature exposure invites unnecessary interference. Learn to carry God's instructions with reverence. Speak when God instructs you to speak. Move when God instructs you to move. Silence, when guided by wisdom, is strength, not fear. As your calling expands, God will also refine your relationships with money itself. Money is a tool, not a master. When money becomes identity, it enslaves. When it remains a servant, it empowers. God will test whether you can hold resources without being owned by them. True wealth is not measured by accumulation alone, but by control. Can you give freely? Can you walk away when God redirects you? Can you remain content even as increase flows? These are the questions God answers before releasing more. You may notice that God is sharpening your discernment about people. Not everyone who wants access to you deserves influence over you. Wealth attracts voices, some wise, some manipulative. God is training you now to hear His voice above all others. Discernment is protection. Wisdom is preservation. When God elevates you, clarity becomes essential. Confusion is costly at higher levels. There will be moments when obedience feels lonely, when your decisions separate you from familiar paths, when you choose long-term purpose over short-term pleasure. Those moments are not punishment, they are confirmation. God often isolates those He intends to elevate so their confidence is anchored in Him alone. Dependence on God creates independence from approval. Let me say this with authority: God does not bless chaos. If your life is disordered, He will bring order before increase. Structure is not restriction, it is foundation. God builds systems, not accidents. He will teach you to manage time, energy, focus, and resources with intention. The discipline you develop now becomes the stability that sustains wealth later. You must also understand that generosity is not something you do after you become wealthy. It is something you practice on the way there. Generosity trains the heart to release. It breaks fear. It aligns you with God's flow. Those who hold tightly reveal mistrust. Those who release demonstrate confidence in God as the source. God entrusts more to those who prove they are channels, not containers. There will be seasons where God asks you to walk by conviction rather than evidence. Evidence comes later. Conviction comes first. Faith is not pretending challenges do not exist. It is choosing to obey God in spite of them. When you act in faith, you activate momentum. When momentum builds, opportunities appear. God responds to movement. And understand this clearly. Wealth does not exempt you from humility. It requires deeper humility. The higher God lifts you, the more grounded you must become. Arrogance repels wisdom. Humility attracts instruction. God teaches those who remain teachable. The moment you believe you have arrived is the moment growth stops. Some of you are being called to build things that will outlast you. Institutions, systems, solutions that serve generations. That level of impact requires sacrifice. It requires saying no to comfort, no to distraction, no to fear. God is not asking for perfection. He is asking for surrender. When you surrender your plans to God, He upgrades them. There is a sacred seriousness that comes with a word like this, and God is inviting you to treat it with reverence, not excitement alone. Excitement fades, but reverence sustains obedience. God is not merely stirring your emotions, He is awakening your responsibility. When God entrusts a future of great wealth, He also entrusts judgment, discernment, and accountability. Every decision becomes heavier. Every choice carries consequence. That is why God is teaching you to slow down your reactions and deepen your reflection. Wisdom is born in stillness, not haste. God is also teaching you to separate identity from outcome. You are not valuable because of what you will have. You are valuable because God chose you. Wealth will come and go, markets will shift, systems will change, but your identity must remain anchored in God alone. If your worth rises and falls with success, you will become unstable when pressure comes. God is anchoring you now so that future storms do not uproot you. Stability attracts trust, and trust attracts opportunity. Another truth many overlook is that God often uses delay to reveal motives. When progress is slow, hidden intentions surface. Are you still faithful when applause is absent? Are you still disciplined when reward feels distant? God is not impressed by ambition alone. He is moved by consistency. Those who remain steady when nothing seems to move prove they are ready when everything accelerates. Acceleration without stability leads to collapse. God refuses to build on weak foundations. God is also expanding your understanding of authority. Authority is not control, it is responsibility. When God elevates you, you become accountable not only for your actions, but for your influence. Words carry more weight. Decisions affect more lives. Silence can protect, and speech can redirect. God is training you to speak with intention and to listen with discernment. Leadership at high levels is less about visibility and more about clarity. There will be moments when God challenges you to let go of good things to make room for greater ones. Attachment can become limitation if left unchecked. God may ask you to release ideas, habits, or paths that once served you well but no longer fit your future. Obedience sometimes feels like loss before it feels like gain. Trust the pro. God does not remove without replacing. He does not subtract without multiplying. You may also notice that God is refining your patience with people. As influence grows, so does exposure to different perspectives, temperaments, and intentions. God is teaching you to lead without becoming bitter, to correct without becoming harsh, and to protect boundaries without losing compassion. Emotional intelligence is not optional at higher levels of responsibility. God values how you treat people when you have power over outcomes. God is also preparing you to handle seasons of abundance without losing hunger. Hunger keeps vision alive. Comfort can quietly dull purpose if you are not vigilant. God is cultivating a continual dependence on Him so that success does not become a substitute for seeking Him. The moment you stop seeking God because things are going well is the moment decline begins. Sustained success requires sustained humility. There will be times when God allows you to face decisions that have no obvious right answer. In those moments, He is teaching you to rely on wisdom rather than formulas. Not everything can be reduced to strategy. Some decisions require spiritual sensitivity, patience, and courage. God is shaping you into someone who can navigate complexity without panic. Complexity is the environment of high-level leadership. God is also reminding you that legacy is built through obedience over time, not dramatic moments alone. Daily faithfulness compounds into lasting impact. Small decisions made consistently create large outcomes. Do not underestimate the power of routine obedience. God often hides greatness inside what feels ordinary. The discipline you practice quietly becomes the strength that sustains you publicly. You must also be prepared for moments when God's instructions contradict your preferences. Preference seeks comfort, obedience seeks alignment. God will not always explain why. He will ask you to trust who. Trust is the currency of relationship with God. When you trust Him without full clarity, you demonstrate maturity. Maturity invites greater responsibility. Another angle God is addressing is your relationship with failure. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is often part of the pathway. God uses setbacks to refine strategy, strengthen resolve, and deepen wisdom. Do not interpret temporary losses as permanent verdicts. God redeems what you learn from failure and repurposes it for future success. Shame paralyzes, but humility restores momentum. God is also sharpening your sense of stewardship beyond money. Time, energy, health, and focus are also resources. Wealth without health is burden. Success without peace is exhaustion. God desires wholeness, not imbalance. He is teaching you to honor limits, to rest with intention, and to sustain strength for the long journey ahead. Longevity matters to God. There will be seasons when God asks you to build quietly while others seem to advance faster. Comparison is a thief of clarity. God's timeline for you is intentional. Rushing to match others can lead you out of alignment. Stay faithful to your assignment. What God builds through you will be distinct, durable, and necessary. There is a refining fire that God allows before public fulfillment, and it is not meant to consume you but to clarify you. In this fire, intentions are exposed, motives are purified, and distractions lose their appeal. God is teaching you to want His will more than quick results. Desire that is not purified becomes dangerous when power arrives. That is why God is slowing some things down, not to deny you, but to align you. Alignment is more valuable than speed, because alignment sustains what speed cannot. God is also teaching you how to interpret silence. Silence from God is not absence, it is invitation. It is an invitation to trust what He has already spoken. When God goes quiet, He is not withdrawing, He is watching. Watching how you steward previous instructions. Watching whether you move by panic or by principle. Watching if your confidence is anchored in Him or in constant reassurance. Those who can remain faithful without constant confirmation are those God can trust with greater authority. Another dimension of this calling is restraint. God will give you opportunities to prove that you can say no even when you have the power to say yes. Access does not mean entitlement. Influence does not mean indulgence. God is teaching you that restraint preserves credibility, the ability to walk away from compromise, even when it is profitable, is a sign of readiness. Wealth gained at the cost of integrity always collects a debt later. God is protecting you from debts you cannot afford. God is also sharpening your ability to see beyond transactions and into transformation. Wealth in God's plan is not transactional, it is transformational. It changes environments, restores systems, and creates opportunity where despair once lived. God is opening your eyes to problems not as burdens, but as assignments. Where others see impossibility, you will see purpose. Where others retreat, you will feel responsibility. This shift in perception is evidence that your heart is aligning with God's intent. You may sense God challenging you to reevaluate success itself. Success is not merely accumulation, it is obedience fulfilled. It is living in alignment with what God entrusted to you. There are many who appear successful but are empty because they chased outcomes without calling. God is preserving you from that emptiness by rooting your ambition in purpose. Purpose gives meaning to pressure. Without purpose, pressure becomes unbearable. God is also training you to respond rather than react. Reaction is driven by emotion. Response is guided by wisdom. At higher levels of influence, emotional reactions create costly consequences. God is teaching you to pause, to weigh, to listen, and to act deliberately. Stillness is becoming your strength. Calm is becoming your advantage. When others panic, you will remain steady. Not because you lack concern, but because you trust God's guidance. Another angle God is shaping is your understanding of sacrifice. Sacrifice is not loss, it is exchange. You exchange what is temporary for what is eternal. You exchange comfort for calling. You exchange convenience for impact. God never wastes sacrifice when it is offered in obedience. Every sacrifice becomes a seed, and every seed carries multiplication. What you release today becomes provision tomorrow. God is also revealing the importance of boundaries. Love without boundaries becomes depletion. Service without boundaries becomes burnout. God is teaching you that protecting your capacity is not selfish. It is stewardship. You cannot serve many if you're constantly drained. God desires sustainability, not exhaustion. Learning when to rest, when to delegate, and when to withdraw is part of your preparation for long-term influence. There will be seasons when God allows misunderstanding to surround you. Not everyone will interpret your silence correctly. Not everyone will understand your decisions. But clarity does not come from being understood by people. It comes from being aligned with God. When you know God is leading you, misunderstanding loses its power. God often allows misinterpretation to free you from the need for approval. God is also reminding you that courage is not the absence of fear, it is obedience in spite of it. Courage, choosing God's instruction even when the outcome is uncertain. Faith does not require certainty, it requires trust. And trust deepens every time you obey without seeing the full picture. God is building a history between you and Him. That history will become your confidence in future challenges. Another layer of preparation is learning to honor process without idolizing struggle. Struggle is not proof of faithfulness, and ease is not proof of compromise. God leads through both. What matters is obedience in every season. When things are difficult, remain faithful. When things become easier, remain humble. God desires consistency, not extremes. God is also calling you to cultivate gratitude at every level. Gratitude guards the heart from entitlement. It reminds you that everything you have passed through was sustained by God's hand. gratitude keeps your spirit soft, even as your influence grows. A grateful heart remains teachable. A grateful leader remains approachable. God is shaping you to lead with grace as well as authority. There will come a time when God asks you to take steps that feel irreversible, steps that close old chapters permanently. This can feel unsettling, but it is necessary. God cannot fully establish the new while you cling to the old. Trust Him enough to move forward without constantly looking back. What lies ahead requires your full attention. Let this truth remain alive within you. God's involvement in your life is intentional, detailed, and ongoing. He is not watching from a distance. He is actively guiding each stage. Even what feels like interruption is instruction. Even what feels like loss is preparation. Nothing is random when God is involved. So continue walking with conviction. Continue listening with sensitivity. Continue building with patience. God is shaping more than your future. He is shaping your impact. And as long as you remain aligned with Him, the promise spoken over your life will unfold with precision, depth, and lasting purpose. Now let this truth settle deep within you. Beyond emotion and into conviction, God does not speak casually, and He does not declare futures He cannot sustain. When God said you will be a future billionaire, He was not describing a possibility. He was unveiling a responsibility. He was revealing the scale of trust He intends to place upon your life. This calling is not about excess, it is about assignment. It is not about status, it is about stewardship. God is shaping you into someone who can carry weight without losing balance, authority without losing humility, and influence without losing reverence. Everything you have walked through has been purposeful. Every delay trained endurance. Every disappointment sharpened discernment. Every closed door redirected you away from paths that could not sustain your future. God was never withholding, He was refining. What felt waiting was preparation. What felt like pressure was positioning. God was aligning timing, maturity, wisdom, and capacity, so that when increase arrives, it does not crush you, but flows through you. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. God's work in you has been intentional and precise. He has been building depth before visibility, strength before speed, and wisdom before wealth. This is why your foundation will not crack when weight is added. This is why your influence will not fade when tested. God builds what lasts. Remain anchored in obedience. Let discipline become your language. Let humility guard your heart. Let generosity remain your posture. Let discernment guide your decisions. Let patience steady your steps. As long as God remains your source and not your substitute, provision will never outrun purpose. When you stay aligned with God, increase becomes sustainable and impact becomes inevitable. Carry this calling with reverence. Walk forward with courage. Build with integrity. Trust God beyond what you can see. What He has spoken over your life is already established, already protected, already in motion. And as you continue to walk in alignment, the future God declared will unfold with precision, authority, and lasting significance. God is about to do something in your life that does not follow the patterns of human systems. I did not come to excite you, I came to awaken you. I did not come to flatter you, I came to prepare you. There is a divine shift unfolding, and God says many will miss it because they are looking for income when God is preparing wealth. They are watching their bank accounts while God is rearranging authority, favor, access, and timing. Hear this clearly. What is coming will not look like a salary, and that is why many will doubt it. But God never asked permission from systems before blessing His people. There is a dangerous lie. that has been planted deep in the minds of sincere people. And that lie says wealth must come through visible labor, predictable structure, and approved channels. God says this belief is about to be shattered, not because work is evil, but because limitation is. God is not bound to reward you only through what exhausts you. He is not restricted to pay you only through what drains you. He is not impressed by your suffering, but He is moved by your obedience, your faith, and your alignment. There are seasons where God trains you through labor, and there are seasons where God releases you through favor. If you try to drag labor into a favor season, you will miss what God is doing. God told me to warn you, because what He is about to release will come suddenly, and sudden blessings expose unprepared hearts. Many people pray for wealth, but they are not ready for the silence that comes when money arrives without effort. They are not ready for the confusion of others when results appear without explanation. They are not ready for the internal battle that happens when your past struggles try to argue with your present elevation. God says if He gave it to you today, it would crush you, not bless you. That is why this warning is necessary. God is not just changing your situation, He is changing your capacity. Understand this deeply. God does not reward noise, He rewards alignment. He does not bless desperation, He blesses trust. He does not respond to panic, He responds to faith that rests even when nothing is visible. Some of you have been crying because your income does not match your effort. And God says, stop measuring your future by your current output. What is coming will not be a reward for your hours, it will be a response to your surrender. You have been faithful when no one saw you. You have been consistent when nothing was changing. You have been obedient when it was uncomfortable. And God says that silent obedience has been recorded. There is a moment in divine timing when God decides that enough is enough. Enough delay, enough struggle, enough proving, enough hiding. When that moment comes, God does not negotiate with circumstances. He overrides them. He does not slowly introduce the blessing. He releases it fully formed. This is why it feels like overnight. Not because God rushed, but because the preparation was invisible. Roots grow in darkness. Seeds break open underground. You do not applaud the soil, but without it, there is no harvest. God says what you call waiting, He calls building. Now listen carefully. This wealth God is releasing without income is not magic, and it is not luck. It is authority, it is access, it is positioning, it is divine alignment with people, ideas, systems, and opportunities that were blocked until now. God says you are about to walk into rooms you did not qualify for on paper, but you qualified for in the spirit. You are about to receive favor that cannot be traced to effort, because it is traced to obedience. When people ask how it happened, your only honest answer will be that God did it. But here is the warning. Do not despise the process that did not pay you. Do not mock the season that humbled you. Do not forget the days when you prayed with tears and still showed up with integrity. If you dishonor the process, you will mishandle the promotion. God says some people lose what He gives because they forget who they were when they had nothing. Pride is more dangerous than poverty. Arrogance can drain wealth faster than bad decisions. Stay small in your spirit, even when your influence grows large. God is not making you rich so you can escape Him. He is making you rich so you can represent Him. Wealth without purpose is a burden, not a blessing. God is not interested in funding your ego. He is interested in advancing His intention through you. That is why this wealth will come without income. So you know it is not yours. So you do not worship it. So you do not cling to it in fear. When God gives without effort, He is teaching you trust. When He supplies without labor, He is teaching you dependence on Him, not on systems. Some of you are uncomfortable even hearing this because you have been trained to believe that struggle equals righteousness. God says that belief is outdated. There are seasons where struggle refines you, and there are seasons where rest reveals God's power. You cannot keep bleeding in a season where God is trying to crown you. You cannot keep fasting for what God is trying to hand you. Discernment is knowing when to fight and when to receive. There is also a test coming with this blessing, the test of silence. God says, tell them not to announce it too early. Do not explain it to people who only understand struggle. Do not seek validation from those who could not carry your burden when you were broke. Protect what God gives you. Favor attracts envy faster than money attracts requests. Silence is not secrecy, it is stewardship. What God births in quiet cannot be sustained in noise. God told me to warn you because when this wealth comes without income, your old mindset will try to sabotage it. You will feel unworthy. You will feel guilty. You will feel like it must disappear because it came too easily. Reject that voice. That voice is not humility. It is fear disguised as modesty. God does not apologize for His blessings, and neither should you. Receive with gratitude, manage with wisdom, and move with obedience. Understand this, God is not bypassing wisdom. He is not canceling discipline. He is not endorsing laziness. He is shifting methods. There is a difference. Some of you have already done the work. You planted when others partied. You studied when others slept. You served when others demanded. And now God says it is time for harvest without labor because the labor already happened. You are not late, you are aligned. This is why doors will open without applications. This is why resources will come without chasing. This is why favor will locate you without effort. God is rearranging networks, not just finances. He is repositioning you where provision flows naturally. Rivers do not struggle to be wet. They flow because it is their nature. God is changing your environment so provision becomes natural to you. But hear this warning again. Do not rush ahead of God once the blessing starts. Speed without instruction leads to loss. Wealth increases your margin for error, but it does not eliminate consequences. Stay prayerful, stay grounded, stay generous. Generosity is not about giving money, it is about keeping your heart free. God says the fastest way to lose what He gives is to clutch it in faith. Some of you are about to experience what feels like financial rest for the first time in your life, and it will expose emotional wounds you buried under survival. When you are no longer fighting to survive, unresolved pain surfaces. Do not be alarmed. God is healing you completely. He does not want you rich and broken. He wants you whole and free. Let Him heal your thinking. Let Him heal your identity. Let Him heal your relationship with money so money does not control you. God also says this wealth will require new boundaries. Some people will only know you as a solution. Some will only see you as access. Learn to say no without guilt. Learn to discern without suspicion. Love without being manipulated. Giving is holy, but enabling dysfunction is not. God did not bless you to fund irresponsibility. He blessed you to establish order. This is why God warned you ahead of time. So you do not think something is wrong when everything changes quickly. So you do not panic when your old systems become irrelevant. So you do not cling to jobs, habits, or identities that no longer fit your season. Transition always feels unstable before it feels secure. Trust God through the shift. You will notice your desires changing. What once excited you will feel empty. What once satisfied you will feel shallow. This is not ingratitude, it is elevation. God is lifting your appetite so you do not waste resources on distractions. Let Him refine your taste. Let Him upgrade your vision. Let Him mature your motives. God is also separating you relationally, not because people are evil, but because capacity differs. Some cannot walk with you where God is taking you. Do not resent them. Do not explain yourself. Bless them and keep moving. Alignment matters more than familiarity. Destiny requires agreement. This wealth without income will also challenge your faith in unexpected ways. When you had nothing, you trusted God out of desperation. Now you must trust Him out of reverence. When provision is constant, discipline becomes a choice, not a necessity. Choose God daily. Do not let comfort dull your hunger for Him. Comfort is the enemy of growth if it replaces dependence. God says He is making you an example, not to be admired, but to be evidence. Evidence that He still provides, evidence that He still promotes, evidence that He still honors faithfulness. People will watch how you carry this blessing. Some will be inspired, some will be offended. Both reactions are irrelevant. Obedience is your only responsibility. Let me say this clearly. This is not prosperity without purpose. This is provision with assignment. God will give you ideas to steward this wealth in ways that create impact beyond your lifetime. Do not underestimate small instructions. Obedience in details unlocks authority and influence. Listen carefully to God, even when instructions seem simple. There will be moments when you are tempted to attribute this blessing to timing, connections, or coincidence. Resist that temptation. Acknowledge God openly in your heart, even if you stay silent publicly. Gratitude keeps the channel open. Pride clogs it. God says the reason this is happening overnight is because time owes you. Years you cried, years you labored unseen, years you waited while others advanced. God is compressing what was delayed. He is restoring momentum. He is accelerating outcome. Do not question speed, steward it. And finally, hear this. This wealth is not the destination. It is a tool. Do not build your identity around what can change. Build it around God who does not change. Use what He gives to serve, to create, to stabilize, to build, to bless, to establish peace where there was chaos. Stay soft in your heart. Stay sharp in your discernment. Stay obedient even when it no longer hurts to obey. God is doing this now, not someday, not eventually, now. And the only thing that can delay it is disbelief, fear, or disobedience disguised as wisdom. Trust Him fully. Release control completely. Walk forward humbly. What is coming will not look like income, but it will look like God moving unmistakably in your life, shifting realities, rearranging outcomes, opening paths, establishing security, and teaching you that He has always been your source, even when you thought it was your effort, your job, your strength, or your struggle. And as you continue to walk with Him, you will understand more deeply that provision is not about what you do, but about who He is and how faithful. You remain aligned with His voice even as everything around you changes and continues to change in ways you never imagined possible. God says there is another dimension to this blessing that many do not understand, and that is the transformation of authority. Wealth without income is not merely provision, it is proof that God has shifted who answers to you. When provision chases you, it means systems have been instructed to respond. When doors open without effort, it means resistance has been removed. God is not just giving you resources, He is repositioning you in the unseen realm where outcomes are decided before actions are taken. This is why you must guard your inner life more than ever. Authority leaks when character weakens. Power fades when discipline collapses. Stay anchored in God even as your circumstances rise. Some of you will notice that people begin to treat you differently without knowing why. Their tone will change. Their openness will increase. Their willingness will expand. This is not because you have changed your appearance or your words. It is because God has shifted how you are perceived. Favor speaks before you speak. Presence enters before you arrive. God says this is not manipulation, it is alignment. When you walk in obedience, creation recognizes it. When you walk in humility, resistance loses its voice. There is also a warning here. Do not let this elevation isolate you from compassion. Wealth can create distance if the heart hardens. God did OT lift you so you would look down on others. He lifted you so you could lift others without losing yourself. Keep your heart tender. Remember hunger without romanticizing poverty. Remember struggle without glorifying pain. God delivered you so you would not return mentally to what He freed you from physically. God says some of you will wrestle with rest. You are so used to striving that peace will feel unfamiliar. You will feel guilty for not fighting. You will feel anxious when things flow easily. That is not discernment, that is conditioning. Let God retrain your nervous system. Let Him teach you how to exist without survival mode. Rest is not laziness when God provides, it is trust. Stillness is not weakness when God leads, it is wisdom. There will be moments when God asks you to move slowly, even though you can move fast. Speed is available, but timing is sacred. Just because you can afford something does not mean you should pursue it. Just because you can access something does not mean it is assigned to you. Wealth expands options, but discernment chooses correctly. Ask God before major decisions, not because you doubt yourself, but because you honor Him as the source. God is also teaching you stewardship at a deeper level. Stewardship is not only about managing money. It is about managing influence, energy, attention, and time. Wealth amplifies everything you already are. If you are disciplined, it multiplies order. If you are careless, it magnifies chaos. This is why God refined you first. This is why delay protected you. This is why the blessing waited until your inner world could carry your outer world. Some of you will be tempted to return to old environments to prove you have changed. God says resist that urge. Validation is not your assignment. Fruit speaks louder than explanation. Stay where you are celebrated for obedience, not questioned for growth. Growth always threatens familiarity. Choose destiny over nostalgia. God says your generosity will become strategic. You will no longer give emotionally, you will give intentionally. You will no longer rescue out of guilt, you will invest out of wisdom. This does not make you cold, it makes you effective. God does not waste resources, and He does not expect you to either. Giving is sacred when it aligns with purpose. You may also experience seasons where God instructs you to hold back, even when you can give. This is not selfishness, it is discernment. Not every request is an assignment. Not every need is yours to meet. God distributes responsibility as well as provision. Trust His instruction over human pressure. God is shaping you into someone who understands cycles. You will recognize when to sow, when to store, when to release, and when to wait. Wealth without wisdom evaporates. Wisdom without humility becomes arrogance. Stay teachable, stay prayerful, stay connected to God's voice above all others. There will be moments when you feel misunderstood, even by those closest to you. Elevation often creates distance before it creates understanding. Do not force alignment. God will adjust relationships in time. Trust Him to protect you from both envy and dependence. God says this blessing will expose hidden fears you did not know you had. Fear of loss, fear of visibility, fear of responsibility. Do not run from these fears. bring them to God. He is not offended by honesty. He heals what you surrender. He stabilizes what you acknowledge. Remember this always. Wealth is a tool, not a testimony. Obedience is the testimony. Faithfulness is the testimony. Character is the testimony. Money is simply the evidence that God entrusted you with more. God is also preparing you for moments when He will ask you to step into roles you never imagined. Advisor, builder, protector, supporter, leader. These roles will require courage more than capital. Say yes when God calls, even if you feel unqualified. He qualifies those He assigns. Do not romanticize overnight success. What looks sudden to others was slow and sacred with God. Let that reality keep you grounded. Let it keep you grateful. Let it keep you aware that everything you have can still be directed by Him. God says there will be a season when you realize that peace is the true wealth. Money will come and go, but peace must be guarded. Do not trade peace for expansion. Do not trade alignment for applause. Do not trade obedience for comfort. The cost is too high. God says there is a deeper correction. He is Maki. Yonggi knew before the full weight of this blessing settles. And that correction is about ownership. Many people confuse access with ownership and provision with control. God is teaching you that nothing truly belongs to you except obedience. When you understand this, fear loses its grip. When you accept that God remains the owner, generosity becomes natural, decisions become lighter, and loss no longer terrifies you. This is why God can trust you with increase, because you are no longer possessed by what He gives. Some of you are entering a season where God will ask you to let go of things you can now afford simply because they are no longer aligned. This will confuse people who equate blessing with accumulation. But God says maturity is not measured by how much you can hold, but by how quickly you can release what no longer serves purpose. Detachment is not lack of gratitude, it is clarity. God wants you free, not cluttered. God is also refining how you hear Him. When resources increase, voices multiply. Advice becomes louder. Opinions become aggressive. Expectations become heavy. If you do not anchor yourself in God's voice, you will begin to move based on pressure instead of instruction. God says, slow your inner world, even if your outer world accelerates. Silence is not emptiness, it is alignment. You will notice that God begins to deal with your motives at a deeper level. He will question why you want certain outcomes, not to deny you, but to purify your intention. God does not bless ambition that replaces Him. He blesses vision that flows from intimacy. If a desire pulls you away from God, it is not from Him, no matter how profitable it appears. Learn to say no to opportunities that cost you presence. There is also a relational refinement happening. God will teach you how to love without rescuing, to support without enabling, to help without losing boundaries. This requires strength. Compassion without discernment leads to depletion. God wants you effective, not exhausted. Love guided by wisdom multiplies impact. Some of you will feel a holy discomfort when you see injustice, imbalance, or lack around you. This is not guilt, it is assignment. God is awakening your responsibility, not condemning your blessing. He is showing you where your influence is needed. You cannot fix everything, but you must not ignore what God highlights. Sensitivity to His prompting keeps you aligned with purpose. God says this season will also teach you patience in abundance. Scarcity trains urgency. Abundance requires restraint. When you no longer need to rush, you must learn to wait intentionally. Waiting is no longer about survival, it is about precision. God is sharpening your timing so you act at the right moment, not the fastest one.
There will be times when God instructs you to invest in things that do not immediately return profit.
Obey Him. Not all returns are financial. Some returns are relational, generational, or spiritual. God measures success differently than systems do. Trust His accounting. You may also experience moments where God withholds clarity on purpose. He is teaching you trust beyond understanding. When provision flows without income, faith must deepen beyond logic. God wants you to walk confidently even when explanations are unavailable. This is maturity. God says, guard your words carefully in this season. What you speak shapes how you steward. Complaints open doors to dissatisfaction. Gratitude keeps vision clear. Speak life over what God entrusts to you. Honor Him in private speech as much as in public acknowledgement. Some of you will feel called to simplify even as your capacity expands. Simplicity is not regression, it is focus. God removes distractions so purpose becomes clear. Do not resist simplification. It is protection. God is also breaking comparison off you completely. When your provision no longer looks like others, comparison loses meaning. Do not measure your journey against anyone else's pace or method. God's plan for you is specific, intentional, and custom built. Stay in your lane. There will be moments when you feel exposed because visibility increases. Do not hide. Transparency before God keeps you covered. He does not expose to shame. He reveals to refine. Let Him strengthen your confidence so visibility does not intimidate you. God says this season will teach you to lead by presence, not pressure. Influence will come from who you are, not what you demand. Authority rooted in H, humility lasts. Authority rooted in control collapses. Choose humility daily. You will also learn that rest is an act of faith. When you stop striving and provision continues, it confirms that God is sustaining you. Let that truth settle deep. You are not the source, you are the steward. God says this blessing will deepen your prayer life, not replace it. Do not pray less because you worry less. Pray more because you understand more. Gratitude keeps prayer alive. As you continue forward, remember this. God did not bring you here to abandon you later. He does not tease with provision and withdraw presence. He is consistent. He is faithful. He is intentional. Stay aligned, stay humble, stay obedient, and allow this season to reshape not just what you have, but who you are becoming under God's hand. Walking steadily, listening carefully, trusting fully, and remaining anchored in Him as everything continues to unfold according to His will. God says there is still another layer He is unveiling, and it concerns trust at the level of identity. Many trust God for provision, but far fewer trust Him with who they are becoming. When wealth arrives without income, it forces a question deep inside you. If I am no longer defined by struggle, who am I now? God is reshaping your self-understanding. He is removing labels you carried out of necessity, not truth. Survivor is not your final name. Overcomer is not your ceiling. God is calling you into sonship of purpose, stewardship of influence, and maturity of faith, where your confidence rests in Him alone, not in what you've endured or achieved. There will be moments when God allows uncertainty, even in abundance, not to threaten you, but to anchor you. Certainty can create pride. Uncertainty preserves humility. God wants you grounded in Him, not intoxicated by consistency. When answers are delayed, lean closer, not away. God speaks most clearly to those who remain attentive when they could afford distraction. God says some of you will be tested by comfort more than you were ever tested by lack. Lack forced you to pray. Comfort tempts you to assume. Guard against assumption. Assumption silences discernment. Stay curious before God. Ask Him questions. Invite His correction. Correction is not rejection. It is confirmation that He is invested in you. You will also notice that your tolerance for chaos decreases. What once felt normal will now feel heavy. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. God is calibrating your environment to match your assignment. Remove what disrupts your peace. Distance yourself from what drains your clarity. Peace is not a luxury, it is a requirement for sustained stewardship. God says this season will reveal the power of consistency in small things. When provision is abundant, faithfulness in details becomes the true measure of integrity. Pay attention to how you treat people when you are no longer desperate. Pay attention to how you listen when you are no longer in need. Pay attention to how you respond when you are no longer pressured. These moments reveal the depth of your transformation. There will be times when God instructs you to pause, even when momentum is strong. Pauses are not punishment, they are protection. God knows what you cannot see. Obedience in pause saves you from regret in motion. Trust Him when He says wait, even if waiting feels unnecessary. His foresight exceeds your vision. God is also strengthening your discernment regarding power. Power can seduce quietly. It can convince you that you are self-sufficient. God reminds you that breath itself is still His gift. Stay aware, stay reverent, honor God privately, not just publicly. Private reverence sustains public blessing. Some of you will feel a call to mentor, guide, or support others who are where you once were. Do this without superiority. Remember the confusion of the early days. Remember the fear of not knowing how it would work out. Lead with empathy. God uses those who remember where they came from without living there anymore. God says you will learn to celebrate without excess. Joy does not require extravagance to be real. Contentment is not indifference. It is peace anchored in God. Let joy be clean. Let celebration be sincere. Let gratitude be continuous. There may be moments when loss still occurs, not because God has withdrawn, but because pruning continues even in abundance. God removes what could hinder future growth. Trust His hand. He cuts to increase, not to harm. Pruning in abundance ensures longevity, not scarcity. God is teaching you to see beyond numbers. Numbers fluctuate. Purpose remains. Do not let metrics determine your worth or direction. Let obedience guide you. Let conviction steady you. Let God's voice outweigh every external signal. As you walk forward, you will realize that the greatest miracle was never the wealth without income. It was the transformation without destruction, the elevation without corruption, the increase without loss of soul. God preserved you. God refined you. God trusted you. Stay attentive. Stay yielded. Stay responsive. God is still speaking, still guiding, still shaping each step, inviting you to walk with clarity, humility, courage, and unwavering trust as His purpose continues to unfold through your life, steadily, intentionally, and completely under His sovereign care. God says, as this season settles into fullness, you must remember that arrival is not the end of dependence. Arrival is simply the beginning of responsibility. What He gives you now is not meant to replace your prayer life, your reverence, or your obedience. It is meant to deepen them. When God trusted you with little, you learned to lean. Now that He entrusts you with much, you must learn to listen even more carefully. The higher the altitude, the clearer the instruction must be. Because missteps at elevation cost more than missteps in the valley. Let this truth anchor you. God did not lift you to confuse you, and He did not bless you to burden you. He elevated you to reveal His faithfulness through your life. Your calm will speak louder than your wealth. Your discipline will speak louder than your access. Your humility will speak louder than your results. People will watch how you move when nothing threatens you, and in that watching, they will see God's order, not your effort. God is reminding you that this wealth without income was never meant to disconnect you from humanity. It was meant to free you from fear. Fear of tomorrow, fear of lack, fear of collapse. When fear leaves, love grows. When fear leaves, generosity becomes natural. When fear leaves, obedience becomes joyful. Guard that freedom. Do not trade it for excess. Do not surrender it to pressure. Freedom is one of the greatest gifts God gives, and it must be protected intentionally. As you go forward, you will notice that God keeps calling you back to simplicity of trust, not complexity of strategy, not obsession with control, but quiet confidence that He is guiding every step. Let your plans remain flexible. Let your heart remain soft. Let your ears remain open. God speaks most clearly to those who are willing to adjust. Remember that what you carry now is weighty, not because it is money, but because it is testimony. Your life is evidence that God can elevate without corrupting, bless without binding, increase without destroying. Carry that testimony carefully. Do not rush it. Do not cheapen it. Live it consistently. God is pleased not because you have received, but because you have remained aligned. Alignment is what sustains increase. Alignment is what protects peace. Alignment is what keeps provision flowing without anxiety. Stay aligned when applause comes. Stay aligned when silence returns. Stay aligned when the next instruction stretches you again. This season is not fragile. It is established. It is rooted. It is ordered. God has gone before you and prepared what you are walking into. Trust Him fully. Yield daily. Walk steadily. Remain anchored in Him as provision continues, purpose expands, and your life quietly reflects the strength, wisdom, and faithfulness of God at work through you.